Welcome to the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show, where you'll learn the ins and outs of buying, selling, and investing in real estate. Our 1-hour program airs every Saturday at 11 a.m. and repeats Sundays at noon, and offers new topics and discussion each and every week. Learn how to sell your home for more money and how to be savvy when buying a home. With over 35 years of experience each, let's now join your local experts, Wally and Cindy Kerr, along with your host, Dave McKay, for this week's live show.
Well, it's another fine Saturday for House Talk with Wally and Cindy Kerr. I'm Dave McKay. Right before we even get started on anything, Cindy, Wally comes in just bouncing off the walls this morning. We know Wally loves disco. Right. So he likes to play that when he's getting ready in the morning. Just real quick, in 30 seconds, how crazy was your morning this morning, and how much disco do you listen to in the mornings?
I always say his head is filled with music because he's always asking Alexa to play all these disco songs when we're getting ready, and one isn't even over, and he's asking Alexa for the next one.
You know, Dave, what's funny is, I don't know if I've ever told our listeners, I was a disc jockey, and you know that. Yes. I had a mobile DJ operation that did over 5,000 parties on the road, started in 1979. Now, that's what's funny is that was the last year for disco, was in 1979. I had no appreciation for disco back in the day. It was all classic rock. The 80s music was okay with me. Yes. I kind of leaned toward the late 70s, but the truth is I never really appreciated disco until later in life. Hey, I like all kinds of music. Cindy likes country. I like country music.
Well, you know, it didn't take doing this show to have an appreciation for the job that you guys do. And I want to give kudos right off the bat. I did mention our sponsors real quick. Best Protect Roofing and Construction and Chris Doak with Gateway Mortgage. They are fine partners. They're trusted individuals that you guys like to work with.
Our customers trust them. And they come away, walking away with what we call raving fan reviews. And so it's really important that people understand they aren't just sponsors on the show. Like you say, they're truly our partners.
Well, there's no parking on the dance floor, so let's keep moving. Tell us, what are we going to talk about today?
That's the way of the world, Dave, as Earth, Wind, and Fire used to say. Dave, we got a segment this morning called FOMO. And the tipping point in the real estate market, FOMO. So Stick around for that. Got a little segment for investors this week. Cindy and I realized something this last week about our own rental properties, our investment properties that spin off streams of income for us. And as we've talked about on the show, Cindy, we call those generational wealth. They're houses that one day we're going to pass along to our kids and grandkids so that they can be taken care of. But we realized something this week, and we're going to talk about that. Also, Dave, this will be part 2 today on preparing to purchase your first home.
Oh, yes.
We know that some things are changing very soon in the very near future that are going to put a lot of home buyers back in the marketplace. We want to make sure we're getting that information out for our listeners, but also for their kids and grandkids, that they will have this knowledge that will help them inside the marketplace. Cindy's got a segment today called, Do I Have to Include Property Taxes and Insurance in My House Payment? And I think the listeners will enjoy that. We've never talked about that before.
Okay.
But here's the gig. Don't miss the very last segment of our show today. Stay tuned. Don't go away and then come back. Stick with us today. But we do have an information-filled show for our listeners today.
Fantastic. And if they can't stay for whatever reason, about the middle of the week, it becomes available on all the podcast networks. And, of course, WallyTalksHouses.com. Click the little subscribe button, and you'll get notifications when every show is uploaded.
Dave, there ain't no stopping us now, so we better get through this little break and right back with information.
McFadden and Whitehead.
That's right.
That's right. We're back in just a few minutes. Stick around.
Hey, it's John Tesh, and if you're selling this year, there's only one man who's willing to guarantee the sale of your home at a price agreeable to you, or he's going to buy it himself. And that's Wally Kerr at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 999-6000. He's the only man I'd call to sell my home because he has a proven system that just creates more demand for any home. And that's what you want. More buyers interested so that you, voila, put more money in your pocket. Call Wally today at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 918-999-6000. That's 999-6000.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
I should have called Wally first.
That's the call I get when someone lists their home with another agent and it doesn't sell. She needed my written guarantee. If you really need to sell your home, why list with anyone else? Sell faster and for top dollar with my guarantee in writing to sell your home, or I'll buy it myself at a price we both agree to up front. No gimmicks. I'm Wally Kerr. Call me today at your home sold guaranteed realty at 330-3000. Get your written guarantee today at 330-3000.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful, from knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Doak with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2276. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233. Equal housing lender.
The Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show is presented every weekend at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and the show repeats Sundays at noon right here on KOKC. Let's get back to the discussions about how to buy right and sell for more with Wally and Cindy, along with Dave McKay.
Last Saturday, we were talking about how we really enjoyed watching the Olympics, and the next day was the closing ceremony. So you brought up something last week where we talked about what different athletes around the world, if they medal, what do they get?
Right.
And specifically, we mentioned athletes from the Philippines. Let me tell you, they got their first gold medal.
Did they?
Oh, so you've done the research.
Yes, and I hope I pronounce this correctly. Carlos Yulo from the Philippines. This is what he gets, okay? Number one, a lifetime of free colonoscopies beginning at 45 years old.
Is this in terms of popularity?
I want to see that list.
No, you have that. I'm showing you the actual screenshot, so that we got that. So yes, colonoscopies.
You just take that off my list. Let me have the rest of the stuff. I have no interest in that.
So you're clear. You're free and clear of that. Number two, a furnished condo.
Wow.
Okay. That's worth something.
Number three, a house.
Wonder what that costs in the Philippines.
I don't know, but
here,
hey, whatever it is, he has a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Several $100,000 in cash. I thought this was great. After a condo, a house, and all that, an iPhone 16.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of random.
16.
An iPhone. Free cookies for life from a local bakery.
Okay, I'm down with that.
Free food for life from multiple local restaurants. Now, can you imagine the restaurants
I could go for that.
And then last, I don't know if this is in priority, but last on the list, a free engineering education, which you would think that would be number one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Or at least above an iPhone.
Definitely above the colonoscopies.
So
that's pretty amazing, Dave, because you did that research, and I'd forgotten about mentioning it last week because I saw that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. But I did research on how much U.S. athletes get, whether they win a gold or a silver or a bronze medal. Do you guys know how much that is?
Yeah, was it somewhere like $36,000?
Okay, that's really close. So a gold medal for a U.S. athlete paid $37,500.
Okay.
A silver medal was $22,500, and a bronze medal, $15,000.
I thought bronze medal was like a free Jamba Juice punch card.
No, you get even more colonoscopies for that.
Now, so Dave, are you aware of how and when the Olympics began?
Did it begin with a marathon? Was that like the first event in the Olympics, or am I wrong?
The original Olympics began as part of an ancient Greek festival which celebrated Zeus, the Greek god of sky and weather. And it included games like wrestling, boxing, long jump, javelin, chariot racing, and breakdancing.
Chariot racing. I didn't think about that one. Wow.
So, Wally, tell us about the symbol.
I knew that the symbol was originally created in 1913 by a guy named Coubertin. He appears to have intended the rings to represent the 5 inhabited continents, which would include Africa, America, Asia, Europe, and what was at that time called Oceania.
I've never heard of that.
And that was Australia. They called it, yeah, right. You knew that, Dave. So I wondered if there's 7 continents, why there were only 5 Olympic rings. And I learned that the 5 colors that were in along a white backdrop reflected the colors found on the flags of all participating nations so that everyone is represented.
Interesting. And I do have an update. Carlos, by the way, won 2 gold medals.
Wow.
So
he gets lots of colonoscopy.
Well, they say he got those for
twice a year.
For his second life. No, I think it was for the first gold medal only.
He's an artistic gymnast.
Oh, okay.
24 years old. Has a girlfriend.
Yeah, he's going to have lots of girlfriends now, right?
She better hang on to him. Now he's a popular guy.
Here's what I also read is that there used to be motorboat sailing, there used to be hot air ballooning, and tug of war used to be Olympic sports.
That's fun.
Because what Cindy was reading was really interesting to me. There were even in the games in the past, there were painters and sculptors and architects and writers and musicians that all took part, and they competed for medals by creating works of art that often celebrated the sporting successes that were going on at the same time.
You know, I read, too, that there were an equal number of medal winners between women and men this year. Did you read that?
Well, I didn't know that, but we talked last week on the show about 50% of the athletes being men and 50% women. Now, before we came to the show today, I did add up, and there were, I believe it was 1,035 medals given out at the Olympics. So that figures there were about 10,500 athletes. That's about 10% of the athletes won a medal.
I didn't know that they present the medal to you and then you give the medal back because it has to be engraved. They engrave it with your name and the event.
Oh, well, that's true. They can't pre-engrave it.
So you just basically get a blank gold medal, and then I think it's like along the edge or something that they do it. But yeah, that's
I don't think that's how it works. They want to see the medal when you go in for your colonoscopy, and you just show them the medal, and that's your ticket in.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Well, hey, how about on to some news that deserves a gold medal? And we'll go ahead and head into our first House Talk segment of the day. And you said something about FOMO. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag because I think I know what this is. I'll leave that up to you, but you mentioned FOMO, and you bring aboard a lot of acronyms during our show.
Yeah, real estate acronyms.
Yes, that I have no clue of. I think I might know what FOMO is.
I'll get there in a minute, Dave.
Okay.
So hang tight, and I'm not going to take any credit for anything more than being the messenger this week. But here's the news, and we talked about in the opening today, the tipping point in the real estate market, because we know it's not really been in our favor over the last 1 to 2 years,
yes.
right? So on Tuesday of this past week, Dave, the investment market celebrated news that consumers' expectations put the 3-year inflation outlook at 2.3%, and that would be the lowest expectation in over 10 years.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. Now, you said the real data or an expectation.
Right. So this was a survey done by the New York Fed that came out on Tuesday, and it's the expectation of consumers.
So that in itself probably isn't going to get me a lower mortgage rate. I was thinking it was going to. I was getting excited.
Well, that's right. But it did fuel the markets into Wednesday, and Wednesday of this last week, it was announced that the Consumer Price Index for the month of July went up only 0.2%. So let's do that math in our head. What's 2 times 12? 24, but you got to put the decimal point in there, so that annualizes the inflation rate based on July's data at just 2.4%. And we know that the Fed wants to be where? 2%. So lots of great news inside the marketplace this last week with the news of lower inflation. But there's still this thing on the horizon that the economy may be contracting a little bit, Dave, and that was the unemployment numbers that we saw a couple of weeks ago. Those unemployment numbers showed that unemployment was going up. So it appears the economy's trying to contract, and this is going to lead the Fed to its first rate cut in mid-September. Yay. Okay.
Yes.
And with less inflation as a concern, it fuels the fire even more for the Fed to reduce its rate to spur our economy along.
So that sounds good to me and for the housing market, but you still haven't told me about FOMO. Cindy, do you know?
I think you're playing dumb with me, Dave. I bet you could have got this one because everyone knows FOMO is the fear of missing out.
Yes.
And it relates to buying and owning a home. In this case, we all know that home prices have been rising rapidly, as much as 40 and in some cases 50% in value over the last 5 years.
Well, yeah, and if it's not you or me, we see and hear stories about our friends, relatives selling a home that they paid $200,000 for just a few years ago, and now they're selling their homes for $300,000.
Yeah, probably a 50% increase over the last 5 years.
And you know, we're not used to that here. I was used to that selling real estate in Southern California. That was just common. But here we're not used to it. But all of a sudden, it's happening here, too. The fear of missing out is the sense on the part of many buyers that if they don't get in now, they'll face an even more fiercely competitive market in the future. Now, when I sold real estate in California, I would tell my buyers, you just got to get in, you got to get something, just get some appreciation. But I think people are feeling that here. And it's really described as the need to acquire property where the value is increasing dramatically to take advantage of the price appreciation while they still can.
So with what we discussed to open the show today, with the good news about inflation and the strong likelihood of a Fed decrease in, Wally, like you said, mid-September,
right.
What's your prediction for this current housing market? Let's pull out that crystal ball. See, I know. I always lead down that road.
I put alkaline batteries in it this week.
Okay,
it's ready to go.
Let's go.
So, Dave, we touched on this briefly last week. There's a large number of buyers that did miss out when rates were lower, and we know that. They were fighting for the same home. The inventory was low, and they still haven't bought. Mm-hmm. And like Cindy said, they've got this fear that they're just not going to be able to get into the market and get into some of this appreciation and get into the candy store like their friends already did, right? So many feel that the train's leaving without them. If they don't rush to get on the train, they're going to lose out on all that appreciation. And many people are still feeling that way. And so these rate reductions, I'm going to say reduction in September, and probably a really good chance that we see another rate reduction in, say, December. And Dave, if you ask why, it's that fear on the part of many that productivity is down and that our economy is contracting and that business orders are down and then unemployment's going up, and they want to do what they can to avoid a recession. So these rate reductions are going to pave the way right up to the front door for people. And Dave, if you're a home seller and you're on the market right now with a home for sale, my words of advice today are hang in there.
Okay.
So the last 21 to 24 months, I mean, it's been a rough run for us. We just haven't, as I've talked about here on the show, we haven't served nearly as many people as we are accustomed to serving. So not as many people have wanted to sell, especially with interest rates between 7 and 8%. So lower rates are coming, and the good news is very likely to spur the housing market along, and you may not need to wait to sell until the springtime, which a lot of times this time of year will be our advice.
And you know, Wally, so many people in the market are coming to realize that mortgage rates are just probably not going to fall back to 2.5% in the foreseeable future, right? If ever. And after watching these mortgage rates climb to that level between 7 and 8, they're far more likely to avoid the fear of missing out and be happy with 5.5 or 6. And we actually see that coming down the pipe.
Yeah, we do.
Like you said at the first of the segment, it's what consumers want. And it sounds like what they're going to get next is some wisdom from the experts. Now, we're going to take a quick break. And who's up this week? Because we did have Cindy last week. So whose wisdom?
It's a secret. Day.
It's a secret. So you stick around and find out, just like me from Wally and Cindy. We have some weekly wisdom coming up next.
Would you like to know what your home would sell for today? Get a simple text message with your home's value by texting your address to 330-3000. You'll get no phone call, just a text. Wally has the buyers at Kerr Team Real Estate. Simply text your address to 330-3000.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
Do your plans this year include selling your current home and buying another one? With fewer homes for sale and harder to find, you'll need a way to win the home you want by beating out other buyers who don't have to sell a home first. That's why you need me. I'm willing to buy your current home with a short closing date and an agreed price so that you can write a firm offer on the home you want. I'll buy your current home so that you can buy your dream home. No gimmicks. Call me today to learn more. Wally Kerr at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 330-3000. 330-3000.
The Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show is presented every weekend at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and the show repeats Sundays at noon right here on KOKC. Let's get back to the discussions about how to buy right and sell for more with Wally and Cindy, along with Dave McKay.
Time for somebody's weekly wisdom. Who's on tap for today? Who's in the hot seat, Wally or Cindy?
I'll take a stab at it today,
okay.
Dave.
All right.
So this last week, Cindy and I realized if you're an investor or you're thinking about buying investment property, we're talking to you today. Been a while since we've talked to our investors. So
yes.
We have a rental that we bought in 1996. So we bought that home 28 years ago, Dave. Dave, whatever we paid for that home, we're done depreciating it.
Do you know
on
what
the
straight
books.
line depreciation is, Dave?
I've heard the phrase.
It's a trick question.
So you can depreciate the improvements on a lot. Okay, you can't depreciate the land. It's not going to go away, right?
Sure.
So let's do a quickie here for our investors because I want you to realize what Cindy and I did. Okay, we bought this home for $70,000 back in 1996. And at that time, the county assessor said the lot was worth $16,000. I went back and looked at our tax return. So the $70,000 purchase price, take off the land, which was $16,000.
Okay.
So we got to depreciate $54,000 over 27 and a half years.
Divided by 27 and a half.
Straight line depreciation. In other words, every year is going to be level, the same amount of money. Now, that's only about $2,000 a year, and then you only get a credit based on your tax bracket. That doesn't make sense for us to hold that home, depreciate it, and not go flip, get out of it, and go buy something else. So let me give you an example, Dave.
Okay.
So that home today is worth $230,000, $235,000.
Okay.
It's better for me and Cindy to go sell that home, which, by the way, our kids are living in, so we're not going to do that. But we're speaking to you now. Do you own rental property, and are you listening today? How long have you owned it? How much has been depreciated? You know that your write-offs are for depreciation and or financing, like the interest you pay on the loan. But if there's none of that left, if you own it free and clear and you've depreciated the property, all you're getting the advantage of, you're not writing that home off because it's done.
And insurance.
It's just your income flows minus your taxes and insurance. To make an easy example, let's say that home's worth $235,000 today, and let's say that I sell it and I go buy another home that's $235,000. Now I don't have any depreciation left on the one I've got. Let's say that the county assessor says that lot's worth $35,000
on the new home.
On the new home,
okay.
And I buy it for $235,000.
Okay.
Now I get to go write off $200,000 of improvements again. I'm starting over, and I get to depreciate that over 27 and a half years. Now I've got a tax advantage again. So it's really important to understand and look at your portfolio and see what you're depreciating and what will benefit you. This is a real super quick segment, Dave, just to remind investors that what works for you in life is saving tax dollars. It's like giving yourself a raise in your income, right? So why not go in and buy something that you can depreciate? If you've owned a rental property for 40 years, probably don't have a mortgage against it, and you're not able to write off anything anymore. Roll that over. Get into a newer home. Newer homes, the insurance is lower, and you don't typically have as many headaches.
You know what's interesting, too, is now our kids live in that one that we've kept too
For
long.
now.
Until we kick them out.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you decide, like Wally said, to roll over and buy something that'll start that clock ticking again on the depreciation, you don't have to evict your renters because an investor will probably buy that and just take over those rental.
This tax advantage that you're getting back could equal a few of your payments throughout the year. It's almost like making a couple of payments for you.
Let's say you've had a $300,000 home and the lot was only worth $25,000. So the improvements are $275,000.
Yes.
Well, over 27 and a half years, that's exactly $10,000 per year. And even based on your tax bracket at maybe 40%, you're still getting about a $4,000.
Okay.
I mean, you got $10,000 a year depreciation, and then you write off about 40% of that as a tax deduction.
I know we want to keep this segment short, but real quick, if next year or whatever we decide to buy a house down in Norman and Tim wants to go to OU for graduate school, is that now a secondary home that we own, and now we can start depreciating it?
Once you charge him rent.
Okay.
You do have to receive rent for it.
Yes.
If you're listening right now, don't forget, if it's Saturday, you can listen to this segment again tomorrow on Sunday to make sure you get it all in your noggin. Or just go to wallytalkshouses.com next week. Listen to it again, like I will, to make sure I do understand it. But, yeah, that was really informative. Let's go from purchasing an additional home for investments to maybe purchasing your first home. We're going to do what? Is this like I think we're doing 3 parts. So this week, it's part 2.
And Dave, we're doing this because we see that the rates are going to come down. We're talking to everyone today based on current information and telling them that here come the mortgage rates down. This is what you wanted. Get your ducks in a row, and let's get ready to help you purchase your first home.
Well, now let's connect with Chris Doak from Gateway Mortgage. Chris, how you doing this morning?
Dave, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's jump right in and discuss our topics of the week, starting with required credit scores. I do have a couple of questions. Is there an absolute required minimum for credit scores when purchasing a home? And do interest rates get better for a home loan with a higher credit score? And where are the break points?
There are, Dave, to answer your question, and it does vary from program to program. There are minimum thresholds for each program, but then the other thing I want to convey is that on top of the minimum thresholds that each program has, lenders then have their risk tolerance on each program and have a credit score minimum that could be greater than that. Okay, so let me give you an example.
Okay.
What a lot of people don't know is that on an FHA loan, you can go all the way down to 500 on your credit score.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
How in the world, thinking that 620 to 640 is the credit score that needs to be achieved, does someone have to have $50,000 in the bank to go qualify for an FHA on a 500 credit score?
It does vary from loan to loan, meaning you run it through the system, Wally, and the system is going to pick up on compensating factors, like meaning more in the bank, debt-to-income ratio is low, different factors. And I will say a large down payment in that situation where the score is low sometimes does bear fruit, and it gives an approval in that circumstance. But it's definitely looking at the other factors and seeing if there's some things that are in favor, even though the credit score may be low.
So do interest rates get better for a home loan if you have a higher credit score?
They do. Yeah, the higher the credit score. And there were some changes that Fannie Mae made earlier in the year, and there was a lot of people up in roar about it. And it did become kind of a political situation. But at the end of the day, the better credit score you have, the better rate you're going to get, and you're going to pay less for, okay? And the worse credit score you have, the higher the rate is.
Let's just say for a moment that someone only has, say, a minimum down payment. They're going to do an FHA program because that typically allows one of the lowest down payment programs available for buyers. And we're going to talk about that some today, I know. But let's say that someone's sitting at that they need a 620 to qualify, and they're sitting right now at a 570 or a 580. Now, what is your company's policy? How do you help these home buyers who are sitting a little lower than where their credit score needs to be? What kind of coaching do you give them, or do they just have to go do all this and figure out how to do it on their own?
Wally, we absolutely, number one, want to help them when we can in instances like that to help them get their score up. What I will say is we aren't credit experts, okay? So even though we look at credit quite a bit, there are credit experts out there that can help people, especially when it's a lot lower, if they need to cover a lot of ground, if they need to increase it by 100 or 200 points. There are credit experts out there that work with them on getting that score up. But if it is a smaller amount of ground that needs to be covered, our system does create some situations where you can see where it helps people get their scores up and gets them into a place that would potentially get them a loan, and we would absolutely want to give them that feedback.
Chris, let's say someone is listening today and they've got a 450 credit score, and they say, yeah, I don't want to rent forever. I'd really like to get into being able to purchase a home so that they aren't ripped off, so that they don't go to a service that doesn't provide a great service for the price. Do you have a place that you would tell listeners to consider going first to get that credit score up?
There are definitely people that we've worked with out there that I would trust more than not to handle my own credit score repair. Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's their choice, and they definitely will have the opportunity to make that choice. But there are definitely people we've come across that we have seen take care of people well.
Let's get down to the nitty and gritty of it for a moment. Let's say somebody's got a good credit score, but they just happen to make a late payment on a car or a credit card, and that ends up being in the last 30 days. Chris, how much does that affect credit score, and how much does that hurt a borrower's ability to go in and qualify?
Well, those are the unfortunate situations, and I've had multiple friends who have 800 credit come to me, and they've had a $50 medical bill that they didn't even realize was out there come late in the last 30 days, and it's taken their credit from 800 to 640 all of a sudden.
Oh, my.
And they're ready to buy the $500,000 house, and their credit's been impeccable.
I could drive a model Hot Wheels car right into Dave's mouth right now because it dropped so quickly when you said from 800 to 640. So
it's unreal.
So if you're trying to buy a home and you're trying to buy your first home or you're trying to buy your third home, a killer, I've heard you before over the years, Chris, say, well, unfortunately, this borrower's got a 30-day late and two 60 days late on their credit report. And Wally, I can't fix that because those are so recent. Those are really damaging to credit reports, is what you're telling us.
They are, but can I give you one good piece of good news? There is legislation that has been passed, and this is accurate to the best of my knowledge, of where I think if the medical bill is less than $500 and you pay that off, that it will be deleted from your report, and you can have it deleted immediately and your score rescored immediately and get that score back up.
Chris, just real quickly, and let's get this one fast and just give a brief description for our first-time listeners. What is debt-to-income ratio? And I often, as a real estate broker, get asked, and somebody will say, this is how much my income is, but how much do I have to take off for the taxes that come out of my check? So let's, Cliff Notes version, if you will. What is a debt-to-income ratio?
Yeah, the debt-to-income ratio is the debt that you've incurred, the monthly payment for that, divided by the income that we are able to utilize for the loan you're trying to obtain. Now, what that means, Wally, is how do you calculate the income? And that's a broad question depending on the loan program and the income type. So let's just take a W-2 income earner, okay? I work for Gateway. I receive a W-2. And if I were a salaried W-2 employee, I would want the gross before tax amount that I'm paid, and that's the income that I would utilize in that calculation.
I've had a lot of young buyers, gentlemen, over the years where they said, my grandmother would like me to buy a home, and she's offered to give me some money as part of my inheritance up front so that I could buy a home because she feels like I'm spending the money for the right purpose, and that can be done, right, Chris? So if it's a blood relative like grandma, grandpa, they can gift money.
And with certain loan programs, FHA, for instance, they allow close friends. That's literally what I think the guideline says, or close interested friends. And the funny part is how do you actually identify if they're a close friend or not? There's ways to do it. This is funny. How about Facebook posts from 3 years ago showing them in a post together?
You've got to be kidding me.
I'm not kidding you, Wally. I'm not kidding you. So domestic partners, okay, so you don't always have to be married to receive a gift from someone. A close interested party can be someone who can gift as well.
That's amazing. So lots of options for down payments. There's ways to fix credit. You don't have to absolutely have a 620 or a 640 credit score to buy. What about other programs now, Chris? Because I'm in real estate, I know what a Native American loan is. And of course, military persons, past or present, can buy with zero money down. And we see so many military people do that here locally because of Tinker Air Force Base. Can you just touch real quick on what a Native American loan is?
Native American loan is a great loan that FHA backs, and it's the lowest down payment, which is 2.25% rather than 3.5%, which is on a normal FHA. And if someone's enrolled in a particular tribe, there's a list of tribes that you need to be enrolled with to obtain this loan. They could absolutely do so. And it's a great loan, lower mortgage insurance, a little bit lower funding fee as well. So great loan to utilize.
It's amazing how many people are carrying a Native American card that allow them to do this, and we help scores of people with that program. And then finally, the Rural Development Program, if somebody wants to live kind of outside the metro in some of the lesser populated areas, I believe there's a 100% program that doesn't require a down payment called an USRDA loan. Is that correct?
That's right. They are great loans known as the RD loan or the USDA loan, and 100% financing, really, really good loans. You do have to make under a certain amount, and even before that, the property has to be located in an area that is eligible for this. But there's a lot of areas around the Oklahoma City metro, kind of right out on the outskirts of that are eligible for properties in those areas.
You've recently been running a program that we've talked about for several shows that would include Gateway Mortgage in a program that would help a buyer pay their down payment and perhaps some closing costs. Could you touch quickly on that?
Two big down payment assistance programs in the state, REI and OHFA. REI allows a 5% gift. And I shouldn't say gift, it's actually a 5% second mortgage, very small amount that you pay out monthly. And that 5% goes towards your down payment and your closing costs, whereas OHFA's down payment assistance you have to pay back when you sell the house. I love the program. It gives you a bigger chunk and really helps you get in the house with a lot less money down.
Chris, that's a lot of information today. And next week, We're going to kind of wrap this whole thing up on how do I purchase my first home and what should I be ready for. And we've got a list of things like a timetable for purchasing, how long it takes to close on a home once you've written a contract, when should someone start looking, how much money are they going to need, now, and how much for closing, even locking an interest rate and doing home inspections and who they're going to work with. So we have a lot to tie in on week 3, which will be next weekend. But how do our listeners reach you if they would like to perhaps investigate or start the process this next week? What's the best way to reach you and your team?
Best way is 405-253-2276. They can give us a call, 405-253-2276, or even send us a text, and we'll get back with them ASAP.
Great information if you're thinking about purchasing your first home. You don't want that FOMO, like Cindy explained to us. Real talk here. If you are thinking about purchasing your first home, or you want some information for your kids, for your grandkids, again, right. Generational wealth, and we want to help them become homeowners as well. Solid information, and we're going to do it again next week. We're going to have part 3 on this as well.
That's right.
Okay, so stick around. We're going to talk about property taxes and insurance and how that kind of coincides with your payment. Stick around. We're going to talk about that next.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful. From knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Stoke with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2276. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233. Equal housing lender.
If your home isn't selling in the current market, maybe you need my written guarantee. Your home sold guaranteed at a price we both agree to up front, or I'll buy your home for cash myself. No gimmicks. Call Wally today at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. 330-3000. 330-3000.
Hey, it's John Tesh, and if you're selling this year, there's only one man who's willing to guarantee the sale of your home at a price agreeable to you, or he's going to buy it himself. And that's Wally Kerr at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 999-6000. He's the only man I'd call to sell my home because he has a proven system that just creates more demand for any home. And that's what you want. More buyers interested so that you, voila, put more money in your pocket. Call Wally today at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 918-999-6000. That's 999-6000.
Would your home sell faster and for more money if it were in better condition? Introducing our Fix It to Sell program. For one reasonable, flat fee, we're willing to advance you the money to make needed repairs or improvements when you list your home for sale with us, so that you can sell your home faster and for more money. Call Wally at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 330-3000 to access our Fix It to Sell program. And remember, if you're selling your home, Wally has the buyers. Call us today at 330-3000.
The Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show is presented every weekend at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and the show repeats Sundays at noon right here on KOKC. Let's get back to the discussions about how to buy right and sell for more with Wally and Cindy, along with Dave McKay.
A topic that started to confuse me a little bit, because we're going to talk about property taxes, insurance, and isn't that part of the monthly payment? Is it not? I always thought it was included, and I noticed that my monthly payment goes up when something's not right in escrow and the insurance goes up.
Right.
So I figured it's more convenient, less risky. I thought it was my only option that it was all melded together. Is that true? It's one payment, not one payment?
Yeah, sure.
School me on this, okay. I guess was what I'm saying here.
Good questions, Dave. So the reason you see that payments sometimes jump around is they're trying to balance that escrow account to make sure there's enough money at the end of the year to pay your property taxes, which are paid at the end of the year.
Okay.
It's funny. That's kind of confusing to first-time buyers, Dave. You pay for your insurance up front, and then you get to use the insurance. You live in the home all year, and you pay your tax bill at the end of the year. That can be very confusing. So your mortgage company sets up this thing that's called a savings account. It's called an escrow account. We call it a savings account because it's less confusing to first-time buyers.
Okay.
So, Dave, you don't have to pay for your taxes and insurance in your payment if you put enough money down when you purchase the home. So including taxes and insurance in your payment, again, it's called an escrow account. When you buy a home and you shop for a mortgage, check with your lender, because in most cases, If you put at least 20% down, you actually don't have to escrow for taxes and insurance. They look at you as being a good money manager and say that you can pay those on your own. But, sometimes the lender will charge maybe a small fee, maybe a 0.5% charge of the loan amount in order to let you be trusted with paying those taxes and insurance on your own.
Okay, so is that something where, one, am I getting a bill for that through my mortgage company, the lender, or is it just something where I know I have to send a check to? Like, am I sending it to them and they take care of it? Do I send it to somebody else? And what are the pros and cons of having my insurance and taxes paid by my lender?
One of the things to think about is if you do have your lender pay the taxes and insurance, it does cost a little more money up front.
Okay.
And a lot of people are tight right at closing with their funds. But to set up that escrow account, that lender's going to want to have at least 2 or 3 months of taxes and insurance. In order to fund that, they're going to collect 1/12 of your taxes and insurance then every month. And they're also going to collect 1 year of insurance up front, which you always have to pay, like Wally said, to make your insurance active.
Yeah, and in direct answer to your question, Dave, let's say you don't have an escrow account and someone says, well, now, wait a minute. What happens here? When am I going to get this bill and how do I know to pay it? First of all, on your insurance, like let's say you're with Allstate or State Farm or Geico, whoever it is, they don't want that insurance to expire and the home to be uninsured.
Sure.
You're going to get that bill probably 60 days before the insurance is due. Be sure and pay it, right? Nobody's paying it for you, so keep your home insured. And then your property taxes are interesting. They're due at the end of the year, but there's a couple of different ways that you can pay those.
Okay.
Property taxes are based on assessments. So every year in October, if you're a homeowner, you get something in the mail that says a property assessment. Most people look at that and don't even know what it means. It doesn't say how much your taxes are. It shows you an assessment based on value, and it's a fraction of what you think. And it's because that's how taxes are calculated, is on an assessed value. Then here comes a bill from the county treasurer for your taxes at the end of November, and they're typically due by the end of December. But if you're paying them on your own, you actually have the option of paying part of them at the end of December and part at the end of March.
One thing to think about, though, is if you pay your own taxes and insurance in the intervals Wally talked about, you get to keep that money until it's due. And if it's in your payment, you don't get any interest on that money. Now, your lender will pay your taxes at the end of the year, and they will pay your insurance from that escrow account when that insurance is due, which is 1 year after you bought that house. But you don't get any interest on that.
Dave, simply put, some people are just good money managers, and they want to manage their own money. They've been responsible. They have a large down payment. And so that's maybe why someone would want to go in and manage that money on their own and pay those bills. Now, a reason why someone wouldn't want that is maybe you've got an irregular income. Maybe your best part of the sales season and you're in sales is during the summertime. Maybe you like to spend a lot at Christmas. I always think it's ironic that the property taxes are due at the end of the year. And how many people do you know that spend less than they planned to spend for Christmas?
Not a lot.
Probably not very many.
Yeah.
So at the end of the year, you've got some property taxes that are due. So they don't have to save the amount for taxes and insurance each month, and that's what people appreciate doing. So having an escrow account is probably good for somebody that has irregular income.
I could see scenarios where if it's first-time home buyers, someone is in their late 20s, maybe even early 30s, and there could be a little confusion with this. And to make it easier and to make it just simply put, here's my payment for this month. Here we go. I'm in the house. I'm living. Let's move on down the road, until they really learn the intricacies of home ownership. I could see that maybe as an easier option for me. I'm already thinking about myself.
It is. We get a lot of. It's funny. We get some who just say, I only want an escrow account because I kind of don't trust myself. I want to know that money is there. But then we get some people who are very disciplined with their money, and maybe they've owned homes before, and they say, I don't want an escrow account. I can manage my own money. One advantage without an escrow account is they can use that money throughout the year for unexpected expenses.
Yeah, you used that word disciplined. Here's a piece of advice, too. If you're buying an older home and things could just pop up and you could have problems with it, you probably want to keep that old slush fund there. It's probably a little harder to budget for if you're paying your own taxes and insurance. I'd probably set up an escrow account on an older home so that you've always got money available to go in and have money for needed repairs or expenses.
That's a good point.
You know, another advantage, Dave, to paying your own taxes and insurance is avoiding that dreaded shortage letter, which is what you talked about a while ago, the account bouncing around.
I've seen that.
What happened? My payment went up $60. It went down $30. What's going on here? I don't understand, okay? I thought I signed this statement at closing that said this is what my payment was going to be. Why is it changing? So if taxes and insurance go up, and they typically always do, you'll get a letter from your lender saying that your escrow account is short, and you've really got two options to rectify it. You immediately send them a check for the shortage, which some people can do and some can't, or you start paying a higher payment, or both maybe. Most counties, if you don't have an escrow account, Dave, will allow you to pay the first half of the bill for the property taxes in December and the second half in March. But you do have to be careful, right, Cindy?
That's right. You know, I got caught on this. It's easy when you're reporting this to your accountant to just write off all those property taxes in that year. But you have to remember, if you only paid half the taxes, you only get to write off that half that year.
Yep.
So it's something else to remember.
If you need the deduction, you may want to write off everything in 1 year and write off all those property taxes instead of pushing it to the next year.
And, you know, if you sell your property and you pay off your loan, it's going to take several days to get the refund of your escrow account. And that's really another reason to pay your own taxes and insurance.
You know, how much info does the normal accountant have in relation to items like this with real estate? If I kind of thought like, hey, I want to start taking advantage of this. I do have some money set aside, so I want to pay for this up front and I want to do this and that. Could I talk to our accountant and say, hey, I want to talk about things in relation to our home? We do have an escrow account, but maybe we want to pay this up front and our taxes and all this stuff. Is the normal accountant going to be up on all of the laws that relate to that with your home?
You know, it's something, if you have an escrow account and you're now in a 20% equity position, you are going to have to go to your mortgage company and get permission to get that escrow account released.
Or if your mortgage balance is paid down to 80 to 78%, you could probably request not to escrow. Dave, I'm going to answer your question on the accountant. The accountant's going to charge you more to call him or her and go through all of this.
Sure.
It's pretty simple. You're not going to get any tax deduction or credit for just paying your homeowner's insurance. That all gets used. We're talking about something very, very specific here, just the property taxes.
Okay.
Whether you pay all of it this year or half of it now and half of it next year, there's no tax advantage to you. It's just a matter of having that cash on hand and whether you want to manage that on your own. So I certainly wouldn't take that question to an accountant.
Okay, well, we said at the top of the show, if you listen to any segment today, it's our wrap-up segment because you said it's the most important segment today. So I'm intrigued, and I know our listeners are
coming
as
your
well.
way. Coming
awesome.
your way.
We got that coming up next.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
What's best for you when selling your home? Full market value typically comes from listing your home so that more buyers can find it. Or you can sell to an investor for less. You can actually get either one at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. We'll agree to sell your home guaranteed at a price agreeable to you, or we'll buy it ourselves. And if you need a quick sale, we'll get you multiple offers from investors who can close in 2 weeks or less. Explore your options today. Call us at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 330-3000. 330-3000.
The Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show is presented every weekend at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and the show repeats Sundays at noon right here on KOKC. Let's get back to the discussions about how to buy right and sell for more with Wally and Cindy, along with Dave McKay.
Okay, Wally, there was talk earlier in the show about an upcoming rate reduction by the Fed based on the good news that was released on Thursday. Now, is this the important news? Is this why we want to throw our listeners a big old fat meaty bone here at the end?
So I'm going to keep in the same context as the rest of our show, because I'm going to pay homage to Snoop Dogg, who was in the Olympics.
Double G.
I'm going to drop it like it's hot today and give you the data, okay?
And something else that was hot was the information of the rise in the national unemployment numbers from about 2 weeks ago. I'm wondering, should a buyer wait now to buy a home until the Fed drops the rate in September, like we're thinking?
So that's an awesome question, Dave. And I might be inclined to say yes with a condition attached to that, okay? So first of all, no one knows exactly what the Fed rate reduction is going to look like in September. So they meet again September 17th and 18th, and the decision is made on the 18th.
Okay.
There's a rate cut coming. We know that. There's speculation of 0.25%, which is already expected. And the mortgage rates already reflect that. Everybody knows the Fed's first rate reduction is coming. The question is, will they do a larger rate reduction to like 0.5%? And so, Cindy, there's going to be a national rebellion if the Fed does not reduce its rate, and you and I know that.
Because you said it's coming, and I thought, boy, it better.
Yeah, so Dave, the mortgage rates you see and find today reflect every lender's belief that the Fed is going to reduce its rate by 0.25 point, and 0.5 point's really very likely. And so here's what I do. If you find a home and you're a home buyer, your kids are shopping for a home, you're shopping for a home, your grandkids, if you find one or they find one over the next 30 days, because we're about 30 days out right now from the Fed meeting, almost exactly, here's what I would do. You remember talking about that float down option that mortgage companies offer?
Yes.
Since we don't know what the Fed's going to do, I called Chris Doak and said, Chris, I think this is perfect for this week's show, and we talked about this before the show today, and that is, we know what rates are right now, and there's an expectation that they may go down even more. If you buy today and you lock a rate and they go down, you'll be upset unless you get that float down option.
Yes.
So here's what I do. If you're going to write a contract before the September 18th meeting, write at least a 45-day closing if you're going to write one this next week. 45-day closing means I'm going to lock my rate right now, and I'm going to lock it in because I'm happy with whatever it is, 6.25.
Sure.
But if the rates do go down, I realize I've got to float down at least a week before closing, according to Chris. So if you wrote an offer today, you'd go in and float, and you would have the opportunity to float that down up to a week before closing. A 45-day closing from now will put you right where you need to be.
And, that's literally having your cake and eating it too, isn't it? You're able to take advantage of not having so much competition from buyers right now, but having that float down option and a better rate. So that's a great win-win.
Yeah, and if you're a home seller, hang in there. The rates are going to come down.
Yes.
The market activity is going to pick up. Dave, there's a whole lot of speculation about how big the rate decreases will be and when they will be, but it's pretty certain right now with the economic data, that's just got to be watched week by week, that probably September and December we'll see rate reductions.
You might, if you found the house that you want this week, before a couple more buyers start to come into the market because the rate comes down, you might get a better deal on that home as far as just price, because a little less competition. So you might get a little bit better deal on that, and then do the float down, so you get the best of both worlds.
That's a win-win.
You get that and
if you're shopping and Chris Doak is not your lender at Gateway, talk to your lender about a float down option. That's the best advice we can give today.
And great information is what this show is about. We give our listeners information on buying homes, selling homes, investing homes. And once again, it's a treat for me to be in with you guys. I definitely, I learn something every week. I have to go back and listen to the show again this week because I still have to learn about the depreciation stuff, which is very interesting. I completely learned new stuff from that. So I'm learning stuff still every week, as of course our listeners are.
Hey, if this radio gig doesn't work out for you, maybe you go into real estate.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. That would be awesome. The advice that you guys offered today, when to buy, what to do over the next 30 days if you find the home you want before the rates come down.
Right.
I just said, you might be able to get a good deal on a home right now before the other vultures come in.
Exactly.
And then you get that float down rate.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And then what to do if you're selling your home now or plan to be on the market, the timing for that as well. If people have investment property that they probably rent now, especially if you've owned it for many years, and you get the depreciation stuff.
Roll those properties over and get more depreciation.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
if you got questions about that, they could call us anytime. Dave, we just enjoy doing the show because we have been rewarded many times now with listeners that have called and said, hey, you probably didn't know, but I've been listening to you for a year and a half, and you sound like you know what you're talking about. But more importantly, I just want your good advice and understand you've been at it for a long time. And we would consider it an honor and a privilege to help any of our listeners or their kids or their grandkids.
You guys have a great weekend.
You too, Dave.
This has been the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally and Cindy Kerr. Heard every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. and replayed on Sundays at noon right here on 1520 a.m. and 95.3 FM KOKC. Selling or buying a home is a major decision in life, and you can place your trust in Wally and Cindy as local experts with over 35 years of real estate experience. Call or text them today at 330-3000 to request a personal visit or consultation. And be sure to visit WallyTalksHouses.com to access the library of shows and topics available for download.